Causes of the American Revolution, an audiovisual timeline. Coach D's 7th period class, 2012.
Navigations Act 1650. Parliament acted combat the treaty rapidly growing Dutch carrying on trade. Colonists could only send English ships to England, and the only thing they could send was sugar, tobacco, and indigo.
French and Indian War, 1750. The French had came over to America to start a war with Britain and Americans, and ended the war by signing the Treaty of Paris of 1763.
The Proclamation of 1763. After much bloodshed, the British defeated the Indians, but tensions remained high. In an effort to avoid more conflict and tension with the American Indians, King George III issued the Proclamation of 1763. It recognized the Indians' right to the land, and it did not allow colonists to settle west of the Appalachian Mountains. It made the colonists very mad because they wanted the land so they could settle. The Currency Act, 1764. On September 1st, 1764, Parliament passed the Currency Act. It got control of the colonial system. Since there was no gold or silver, the people had to trade or print their own money.
They suffered the trade difficult with Great Britain to begin with, and they wanted to abolish them. The Currency Act established what amount to a superior would have.
The Stamp Act was passed on February 17, 1765. It was the first serious attempt of governmental authority over the colonies. It taxed anything printed on paper by making them buy stamps or seals. They made the Stamp Act to help regain the money lost from the French and Indian War.
The Declaratory Act 1766. King George III said all colonies must follow British laws, and may not make their own laws to follow.
The Quartering Act. The Quartering Act was passed to make colonists house and feed British soldiers. This made the colonists angry, as it was expensive to house soldiers, and it made the colonists lose their sense of having rights.
The act was passed for the large numbers of British troops coming into the Americas. The troops couldn't supply themselves, and when they were housed by the Americans, took low-wage jobs in which most of the Americans could now not get any. The soldiers were also to be supplied with 1 ounce of rum every day, 1 ounce of rum in a cup of water. They are also to be supplied with salt, spices, and other meats and necessities.
The Townshend Act, 1767. The raised taxes on everyday normal goods reignited hostilities between the British and colonials. Reaction assumed a revolutionary proportions in Boston, and in the summer of 1768, when customs officials impounded a sloop owned by John Hancock for violations of the trade regulations, crowds mobbed the customs office. British troops marched to occupy Boston on October 1st, 1768. The colonists gave no resistance. They changed their tactics, refusing to buy imported goods. British trade soon dried up, and the powerful merchants of Britain interceded on the colonists' behalf.
The Boston Massacre, 1770. The Boston Massacre happened on the unusually cold spring night of March 5th, 1770. A British sentinel was guarding the Boston courthouse when he was attacked by a colonist, soon to become 50 colonists. The sentinel called out for help, and 8 soldiers and 1 officer came to the rescue. As the mob grew louder and became angrier, shots were fired by the soldiers. Out of the shots fired, 3 people were killed and 8 were wounded. Later, 2 of the wounded died.
The Boston Tea Party, 1773. Parliament passed the Tea Act, which made the British East India Company the only company allowed to sell tea to the colonies, which made this a monopoly over tea. On December 16th, the Sons of Liberty dressed up as Indians and tossed 342 crates of British tea into the water of the British Boston Harbor. This was
The Intolerable Acts of 1774. After the Boston Tea Party, the British were very angry, so they passed the Intolerable Acts in the spring of 1774. These were created to prevent other attacks from the colonists. The laws stopped town hall meetings, trade with Boston and Britain, and strengthened the Quartering Acts. This harmed Boston's economy because there was no trade, so other colonies provided goods. This helped stir the revolutionary spirit between the colonies.